Welcome! I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Now today I'm going to be reviewing one of my favorite books by one of my favorite authors of all time, The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I'm telling you, man, Donna Tartt, since the early 90s, has been one of my favorite writers of all time. I mean, I study what she does and worship the words that she puts on paper, probably almost as much as with Stephen King or Tad Williams or Robert McCammon or any of those other authors of mine that you know are my favorites. So I'm excited to start reviewing the Donna Tartt books. Let me tell you something. She only writes one book every 10 years. And every single one, and so she's only got three. She's got The Secret History, The Little Friend, and The Goldfinch. I read The Secret History when it first was released way back in the early 90s. Magnificent book. In the early 2000s, The Little Friend came out, and I read that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't read a book so similar in tone and storytelling and wordsmithing. I haven't read a book so similar to Robert McCammon's Boy's Life as The Little Friend. And then The Goldfinch came out a few years ago, and it topped these other two books combined. It was just brilliant. I mean, it is a bewitching novel by a bewitching novelist. I mean, I'm obsessed with watching Donna Tartt interviews on YouTube. I find everyone that I can because she talks a lot about the craft of writing. And if you know, a lot of my book reviews are also sort of writing advice videos. And so one of the things I'm going to tell you before we get into the review of The Goldfinch is I'm going to tell you that if you go onto YouTube and find some of the interviews that she gives some fantastic writing advice. One of which, and I found out this later on in life, is that me and her have a similar sort of writing preparation style. And that is, we keep impeccable notes on everything that we ever think of. And if you've watched some of my other writing advice videos, you'll notice that I tell you this. Always write down every single idea that you ever have, because you will not remember it. You think, yeah, oh, I'm in the shower, I better finish my shower. No, you get out of the shower and you write that note and you write that down. You pull over off to the side of the road if you're driving and you write it down. You hang up the phone call with your friends and you write that down. Donna Tartt, she gives the same exact advice. Keep notes and keep them forever. Keep your notebook and don't get rid of it. Keep those ideas, because every single idea you have, you can plug into any novel. And I'll link to some of my writing advice videos at the end of this one, so you can see what I'm talking about. But Donna Tartt also mentions that. Writing advice part of the video over. Let's talk about Donna Tartt and The Goldfinch itself, okay? Like I said, this is a bewitching book by a bewitching author. I mean, it's a Pulitzer Prize winning novel. I mean, it came out of the gate winning the Pulitzer Prize and selling billions of copies and just enchanting tens and thousands and millions of readers. I mean, this book, The Goldfinch, is drenched. It's the kind of writing I love. That's why I just follow Donna Tartt on YouTube and stuff like that so closely, is because I write the way I wish I could write is the way she does write. I mean, I try to write as vivid and sensory of scenes as I can, with a lot of thought and detail as I can get, without boring the reader. And Donna Tartt does that very same thing perfectly. I mean, her stories are drenched in vivid sensory detail, description, and thought and character. I mean, you are never confused about what some character in her books is thinking or feeling, because she lets you know. And she lets you know in a way that is entertaining and mysterious and intriguing. And we all aspire to that as writers. And if you're a reader, you love it when writers do it well. And Donna Tartt does it better than almost anybody. You know, this book is full of nimble dialogue. It's full of great characters, young characters, teenage characters, teenage angst. It's a coming-of-age tale where the dialogue between, I've been critical of some of the dialogue in some of the John Green books that I read, that it seems weird for teenagers. Well, Donna Tartt, the dialogue that she's got with her teenagers in these books, and all of them, to be honest with you, rings true. It's like real teenagers would speak this way, even when they're trying to be pretentious. And yes, all of her books are full of pretentious people, but you get it because they don't come off as awkwardly pretentious as some writers write them. They come off as genuinely pretentious, which is what she's going for. And, it's got that coming-of-age, teenage, angsty feel to it that rings true. Very Dickinsonian. The very Dickinsonian. I can't say that word right now. Dickensian. Yes, the very Dickensian feel of her novels. They're very gothic tight thrillers with Dickensian type characters. Her words and her stories are like a symphony. And that's just a general broad brushstroke of me gushing about it. Let's talk about the story itself if you're not already familiar with it. It is about the Goldfinch, the painting in the museum. A boy and his mother, a teenage boy, Theo Decker, and his mother go to the museum to visit the paintings, to see the paintings. And one of his mother's favorite paintings is the Goldfinch. And they're kind of looking at it. And as they're looking at it, Theo, he's looking around at some of he doesn't really care too much about the museum. He's looking around at some of the other patrons. He sees a pretty little red-haired girl that gets him all kind of excited and, teenagey and all of that. And then out of nowhere, a terrorist attack happens and the terrorists blow up the museum. And what a great scene where in a literary piece of fiction to have a terrorist attack so gripping and real as the one that Donna Tartt has put in here, that is so gripping, real, and heartfelt because people die and there's deaths and Theo's mother dies. And out of the rubble stumbles Theo, and he's, for some reason, latched onto this painting, the Goldfinch, and saved it from the rubble under his coat, and he leaves the museum unseen, looking for his mother, thinking that she's dead, with this very expensive painting under his coat. That's the basis start of the plot of the story. Well, his mother's dead. Now he has nowhere to live. So he goes and stays with his best friend, Andy, in a very ritzy Park Avenue apartment with, again, very quirky characters. Andy's mother and family and sister and brothers. Just quirky characters that all just fit in this story so perfectly. And he seems to be having a really good life building for himself with this sort of new adoptive family that he's got in this rich, Park Avenue apartment. And he befriends a local hobby antique dealer, and he runs into a little girl that works at the antique shop named Pippa, who a little bit of a romantic love interest. And all of these characters are so wonderfully crafted and so wonderfully put together. And the things they say to each other and the way they talk between each other is magic. And underlying it all is this mystery of this painting, and the mystery of and the doom of his mother's death, and the fact that he's smuggled this painting out of the museum, and nobody knows that he has it. The museum has just written it off as a loss, but he's got it there. And there's just an underlying boiling tension in Theo's life as he tries to deal with the death of his mother and deal with having a new family. Well, turns out his deadbeat father, decides to come and take Theo out of his adoptive family and take him across the country to Las Vegas to live with him. He's like, yeah, you're going to come live with me. But his adopted father has some pretty shady reasons for wanting Theo to come live with him. And I won't spoil that part of the plot for you. Like I said, I don't do plot spoilers in my reviews. I think that people should just read the book and figure it out as they go, because that's That's the joy of reading, is just figuring out all of it as you go. So Theo ends up in Las Vegas with his father, who is just not a good guy. His father lives with this girl who is just not a good person. And so now Theo is stuck in this foreign land of Las Vegas, alone with nobody except for the next door neighbor, who is a Russian kid named Boris, who's not a very good kid either. I mean, he's kind of a troublemaker. He's kind of a pot-smoking, drug-dealing little shit, if you know what I mean. But Theo is drawn to the kid because he's the only kid that will pay attention to him, and they become fast friends. And the mystery and the plot boils, and I won't get any more into it other than to say that the mystery of the missing painting is still there. There's a lot of Russian mobster stuff that starts to happen in Vegas and around the world with Theo and the painting, and Boris, and everybody that we've met so far in the story is kind of embroiled in this. And so it, like I said, it is a symphony of literary gold, of just everything you could want in a book. A thriller, a piece of literature, a Dickensian melodrama, Dickensian I don't know. I still don't know if I'm saying that right. Donna Tartt would be disappointed in me. A guy who thinks she is the greatest writer ever, and I can't even pronounce Dickensian. It's a shame. But like I said, if you've watched my videos before, they're unscripted. The production values are off the charts. It's like watching a Spielberg movie, really. Anyway, The Goldfinch. I love it. Pulitzer Prize winning and deserving of every Pulitzer that it won. Absolutely. Absolutely deserving of all the raves it gets. It's a great, fantastic novel. I've read it twice. I watched the movie. They did a fantastic job with the movie if you want to watch that. And I will be reviewing her next book, The Little Friend, soon. I loved it too. And then we will be doing her very first debut novel down the road. One of my favorite authors, Donna Tartt. I wish, there's very few people on this planet that I wish I could meet and hang out with and have a dinner with. Stephen King is one of those. And hey, I've met a lot of my favorite authors so far and had dinner with them, and it's been great. But there's a few out there that I just haven't met yet. I mean, I've met Dennis Lehane, I've met Tad Williams, I've met George Martin. I've met a lot of people and hung out with them and had a great time on my journey as an author myself. Stephen King, I have not met. I still would. Man, and I would give anything to hang out with Donna Tartt for an evening and just talk to her about her life, her writing, how she does, what she's interested in, what's going on. If she's a Raiders fan. I don't know anything about the lady other than what I've watched on YouTube, and I'm fascinated by her. I think she's a true literary genius. So let's give The Goldfinch, I rate things 1 through 10, 1 out of 10. I think you can see it coming. I think you're going to see me give this a 10 out of 10, right? Yeah, 10 out of 10. The Goldfinch. When I meet her, I'm going to have her sign it.